Welcome back, my beloved friends, to the second chapter of this cautionary tale, a story that could resonate at any stage of life. But Jada refused to be reduced to just another number in Marcus's predatory game of subtle domination and dismissal. You may remember their names from part 1, Marcus and Jada. Marcus, the rising star, charismatic, powerful on the court, admired by nearly everyone at Easton High, and Jada, the naturally beautiful, radiant freshman, intelligent, kind, and still so new to a world she did not yet realize could be so cruel and dangerous. When Marcus, the senior captain, invited her to prom in front of the entire school, it stunned everybody, and it stunned Jada even more. Why her? Why now? Many of the girls just wanted him to notice them, yet he chose the freshman. For Jada, it felt like a dream. For Marcus, it was just another game he knew all too well how to play. Prom night has come and gone. The glitter had faded, but the consequences are only beginning to surface. And so, we return to Easton High School on that fateful Monday morning to witness what we call the fallout. You may recall how Jada boldly rejected Marcus's advances during their dance at the prom, refusing to become just another notch in his belt, another story for him to boast about at her expense. Instead, she walked away, her dignity intact, unshaken even as he murmured suggestive words meant to rattle her resolve. And then, of course, there was the picture. Jada by the car. That now iconic image of serenity, smiling, calm, poised, and unbothered. A silent declaration that she would not be broken, no matter the whispers swirling around her. But what neither Jada nor Marcus could have anticipated was the fallout. Because prom night was over, yes, but the story was far from finished. The seniors still had obligations to face, events to attend, and graduation just days away. And in those final moments of the school year, the choices made on that glittering night would echo louder than either of them expected. Now let's step inside the days that followed and uncover what really happened at Easton High. Part 3: The Fallout. By Monday, Easton High was buzzing. The photo of Jada standing solo, radiant and resolute, outside the black Escalade had gone viral, not just among students but alumni too. It wasn't just that she looked good. It was the quiet message. Power doesn't always speak. It moves. Jada walked into school like any other day, wearing jeans, a soft hoodie, no more curled hair now loosened and falling gracefully down her back. She wasn't trying to be noticed, but people noticed anyway. A group of junior girls smiled at her like she was famous. A teacher winked and said, "Way to handle yourself, Miss Masters, DH. One senior actually stopped her to say, "You rock." For real. Jada smiled, but inwardly she was a bit stunned. She didn't do any of this for attention. She had just chosen peace over pressure. But now the school had made her a symbol, and she was still processing what that even meant. Marcus, meanwhile, was scrambling. He hadn't expected that. He thought she'd be devastated, maybe embarrassed enough to keep her head down for a few weeks. Instead, she walked away with all the power. She became the story. And Marcus? Just a quotation. That fateful morning, the halls were louder than usual, but not with the carefree chaos of a typical school day. The noise had a sharper edge, full of half-laughed whispers and exaggerated gasps. It was the sound of something breaking beneath the surface, the same surface that he had held court over. Students huddled in tight clusters, eyes flicking toward him when they thought he wasn't looking. Some looked amused, others curious. A few had that hungry gleam, familiar to how sharks surround. Yet when they smelled drama and blood in the water, Marcus walked in wearing a grin that didn't reach his eyes, not his usual easygoing smile, the one that disarmed teachers and made girls forget what they were saying. No, this one was different. This one was strategy. No, this one was different. It was sharp, intentional. In short, it was a mask. He kept his shoulders square, his steps even, like he still ruled the place, like nothing had happened. Truth is, he'd been left standing alone at prom. Prom, the biggest night of the year, and he was the punchline. Him, Marcus Hayes, the team captain, the one who made the rules without ever saying them out loud. Today, walking through familiar halls that suddenly felt colder, tighter. The chill was undeniable. Every smile he passed looked a little too forced, even rehearsed. Every laugh, a little too fake, too loud. But underneath his fake grin, panic simmered. Now, every hallway whisper, every sideways glance reminded him that control was slipping. This was just the beginning, yet he maintained the illusion. That was Marcus's forte, performance. He moved with the star swagger of a prince, even as his reign wavered. Ordinarily, his classmates would flock to him for their daily assignments, treating him like their general. Normally, he would say, "You go pick up my order at Belmont's, you. Get me the latest homework assignment for Mrs. Klein's class." He delivered multiple commands like a boss with ease. Today, however, was different. Most wouldn't even meet his gaze, rushing in the opposite direction. "Sorry, man, gotta get to class." So he lied to himself. The lie? That he didn't care about what Jada did, what the others thought or said. The truth, he'd never cared more, and the worst part? Everyone was watching, anxiously waiting to see if he'd crack under the weight of the obvious suspicion. Like Grandma would always say, that just goes to show how quickly public opinion can shift. They will love you one day and despise you the next. That revelation came from the good book she loved to quote. By second period, someone had started a thread on X, formerly Twitter. Prom Queen Energy, Jada Masters, freshman with the crown and the calm. The comments, were full of shade towards Marcus the Great. Some of his undeclared rivals, even secret haters and ditched girlfriends, got up the courage to finally speak out. Dude got benched and replaced in the same hour. She dipped with dignity, and he stayed with desperation. Marcus's teammates and crew tried to console him, hyping up his fallback date. "At least you didn't leave alone," they said. But Marcus couldn't shake the sting. His pride was on the line, his reputation, and worse, his control over the story. So he did what a lot of insecure people do. He started feeding crumbs to the one person he knew would spread it like breaking news. When people asked what really happened, Marcus didn't lie. At least, not directly. He just curated the truth, leaving enough gaps for imagination to do the rest. "Man, y'all don't even know the full story," he'd say, voice low, eyes half-lidded like he was holding something back on purpose. "Yeah." She dipped, but she hit me up later. She was just heated 'cause, the spotlight was kinda heavy on me. We talked, he played it cool, mysterious, like a man who still had the upper hand. Then the unexpected happened. Her cousin posted a cryptic tweet. "Don't rewrite the story just 'cause you ain't happy with how it ends," followed by a selfie of her and Jada eating pancakes at midnight. Caption, "Unbothered and munchin'." Then one of the usual instigators, always looking to stir the pot, dropped the inflammatory match. "Yo, you just gonna let that post slide, really?" And that was all it took. Late that night, with pride still stinging and half a Monster Energy drink buzzing through his system, Marcus fired back, vague, pointed, and perfectly timed. Funny how some people act brand new on the dance floor but different when they hit you up later. "Keep it classy. No name, no details, just enough smoke to start a fire, and within minutes it did." The comments lit up. "Wait, she called him? I thought she ghosted him? So she faked it at prom but circled back after?" Then came the real twist of the knife. "It's all good though, she cool, we straight now." He didn't have to say what was said. He didn't have to prove anything. The suggestion was enough, that maybe Jada had cracked, that maybe she wasn't as composed as she looked in that now iconic photo by the car, that maybe, just maybe, she regretted it. By the time lunch rolled around, the lie had legs. It whispered down hallways, stretched across text threads, morphed and multiplied with each retelling. She called him crying. They linked up after. She apologized. Marcus said nothing else. He didn't need to. His silence worked like a fog machine. Thick, deliberate, disorienting. And in the absence of truth, people made up their own. Marcus let it ride. He didn't post anything as nobody could quite see what happened, so they filled in the blanks themselves. "Bro, she's just mad 'cause you got options. Girls be emotional. She'll come back around. One screenshot later, her heart dropped. Not from fear, but from insult. Not because it was true, but because it was what it implied. Messy and wildly dangerous for a young girl, a mere freshman in high school. She sat on her bed staring at the post, while her grandmother folded laundry nearby. Sensing something, Granny glanced over. Don't let somebody else's lie drag you to the mud. You better than that. Jada inhaled deeply. She wouldn't argue, she wouldn't explain, but she also wouldn't stay completely silent either. Jada had heard the whispers, saw the raised brows. Her phone buzzed with, "Girl, did you call him?" texts. She didn't respond. She wasn't mad, she wasn't shocked. She just refused to explain herself. Granny always said, "You don't fight every lie. You live your truth so loud the lie starves on silence." Still, she knew she had to say something. So she posted a single Instagram story. Black background, white letters. Never called, never cried. Still good. Jada knew deep down that her value was so much more than Marcus could ever comprehend. Her worth wasn't tied to his opinion, or anyone else's. That truth had been sewn into her from childhood, spoken gently and often by her grandmother, who had reminded her, even as a toddler, that she was chosen, destined, and deeply loved. She didn't always grasp it, purpose, destiny, the quiet, steady vision for her life. But this time was different. This time she walked like someone who knew who she was. There would be no compromising her values to soothe someone else's ego, no shrinking herself to fit into someone else's narrative. She believed that through prayer, her battles were already fought and won. She didn't have to argue. She didn't have to defend her name. Peace was her posture. And the silence she kept, it wasn't weakness. It was strength clothed in stillness. Then she went right back to her sketches, her friends, her music. It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. But it was enough. Then someone shared a video. From prom night, Jada walking away, graceful, deliberate. Marcus standing near the punch table watching her leave. No walkout, no drama. Some people believed him, at least at first. Marcus leaned back, feeling like he'd just taken control of the narrative. It wasn't a lie, he told himself. It was strategic framing. But what he hadn't accounted for? Jada's cousin. The wake-up call Jada was just finishing. Breakfast when her phone buzzed. Her cousin's voice came through sharp and steady. "Girl, you seen what that fool posted? People talking like you begged to see him after prom. I know you didn't, but the internet got a wild imagination." Jada blinked. Her stomach tightened. "Send it to me," she said quietly. Just facts. His version of events, cool, confident, untouchable, started cracking under scrutiny. A senior girl who'd always side-eyed his cocky behavior tweeted, "Funny how the apologetic girl never looked pressed. That man is fighting ghosts." Then came the screenshots. A classmate posted a clip from prom night. Jada walking out, Marcus spinning back toward the dance floor. Arm already around someone else. Another posted DMs. Marcus fishing for sympathy, trying to flirt the next day like nothing happened. And just like that, the whole "she was friendly later" narrative got exposed for what it was. A last-ditch spin. Attempt from a bruised ego. The truth unraveled the lie. And people started talking, not just about Marcus, but about how young women get treated when they say no. One teacher even used it as a teaching moment in a media literacy class. By the end of the week, Marcus stopped trying to explain. His close friends stayed quiet. The backlash hit quick. People started commenting, even one of the senior girls. One. Marcus had once ghosted. Quote tweeted him with, "Imagine fumbling a freshman and then lying about it." Whew, ego is wild. Coaches told him to tighten up before scouts start asking questions. Then came the unexpected gut punch. His counselor called him in. Just a quiet chat, just a few questions. Just enough for Marcus to feel the walls closing in. "This isn't a disciplinary thing, Marcus. Yet. But I'd tread carefully if I were you. Schools check character now more than ever." For the first time in a long time, Marcus didn't have anything slick to say. That day was brutal. For Marcus, it felt like the walls were closing in, each hallway at school narrowing into a tunnel of whispers and stares. First came his coach, normally easygoing and supportive, who pulled him aside after practice and spoke with a tight jaw, disappointment leaking through every word. Then the counselor called him in, her voice soft but edged with concern. But the worst, by far, was his friends, or at least the people he thought were his friends. Some asked vague questions, others avoided eye contact, and one simply said, "That was low, man," before walking away. The lie was crumbling spectacularly. Every attempt he made to backpedal only deepened the hole he was in. He couldn't keep track of who knew what, or how much. He just wanted to go home, to bury himself in the silence, to unplug from the world, to stop feeling like every breath was choking. He just needed to breathe. As he stepped through the front door, for a moment he exhaled. Home. Silence. But then, voices, his parents, in the kitchen. Their tone wasn't raised, but it was sharp and fast, like knives glinting under the surface. He took a hesitant step forward, just as his sneaker creaked on the floorboard. Their voices stopped. Both turned as he entered. No warm greeting. No, "Hey son, how was school?" Just silence. His father's face was a stone wall, arms crossed, jaw tight. The air was different. Gone was the smell of fresh cookies baking, or the aroma of a special dinner his mom had promised. Instead, it was thick with something unspoken, a tension so heavy it made Marcus's stomach twist. Then his father spoke, voice low but razor sharp. "Sit down, Marcus." And just like that, the house that had always felt like a sanctuary now felt like a courtroom. And Marcus, he wasn't sure if he was about to be sentenced or saved. "Marcus," his father's voice cut through the air like a blade, sharp and cold. "What is this I hear about you and your prom date?" Marcus froze, his heart thudding in his chest. The air in the room shifted. His father stood tall, arms crossed, his face carved in stone. There was no mistaking the tone. It was one of deep, simmering disappointment. "What happened that you didn't see her home like a gentleman?" he asked, every syllable laced with reproach. Marcus's mouth went dry. How did they know? Apparently, the whispers had reached them through the neighborhood grapevine. Mrs. Denby, the elderly woman next door, whose grandson had been at prom, saw everything. Word had spread fast. His father's eyes were dark with anger, but more than that, solid. Family embarrassment. "I know how we raised you. Clearly you chose to ignore everything we taught you that night." Marcus sat there, shoulders hunched, feeling the weight of his father's words pressing down on him like stones. Shame crawled up his spine. "It won't happen again," he murmured, barely audible. "It better not," his father snapped, his voice tightening like a noose. Just when Marcus thought it was over, his mother chimed in, soft but stern. "Marcus, how could you humiliate your family like that?" She continued by suggesting they call Jada's grandmother to apologize. But that was before they learned the full extent of Marcus's strategy through his little sister that had overheard everything from the older kids while riding the bus home. They talked about his pathetic attempt to save face by twisting the truth, implying something had happened that hadn't. An implied lie that was falling apart at the seams. The moment his father heard about that, his jaw clenched. Without a word, he turned and walked into his study. "Marcus, in here, now." The door clicked shut behind him, sealing off the rest of the world. The silence in the study was thunderous. "Sit," his father said, not looking at him. What followed wasn't just a lecture. It was a reckoning. "First, you tell me exactly what happened, what you said, what they said, everything. I want the truth, the whole truth, right now." Marcus tried to explain by downplaying his recklessness, but his father wasn't having it. He listened, stone-faced. Marcus tried to explain, to charm, to twist the story as he had done so many times before. But his father's silence cut deeper than any accusation. When he finally spoke, his words landed like a hammer. You've dishonored yourself and your family, Marcus. Not just because she rejected you, but because you lied. Because you played games with someone's dignity and thought it made you strong. It doesn't. It makes you small and petty. Character isn't about how many points you score, Marcus. It's about who you are when no one's cheering. The coldness in his tone was sharper than anger. It was disappointment carved into steel. Yet beneath it, in the spaces between his words, was something far heavier. The heartbreak of a father who had always believed his son's charm, his discipline on the court, his ambition would carry him further than most. He had defended Marcus, bragged about him, trusted him to rise above the noise. But now, with rumors spreading and truths unraveling, the disappointment in his eyes cut deeper than any teammate's whispers or rival's smirk ever could. Marcus had faced losses before, on the court, in the locker room, but this silence, this fracture in the one bond he once thought unshakable, was unlike anything he had ever known. And in that moment, the so-called captain, the golden boy of Easton High, was left to reckon with a truth he could not charm his way out of. The fallout had only just began. Marcus retreated to his bedroom after the weight of the reckoning and punishment, the door shutting with a dull thud that echoed through the hollow silence of the house. He collapsed onto the bed, staring at the ceiling as though the plaster itself might hold the answers he could not find. The air felt heavier than usual, dense with the residue of his father's words, with the disappointment of a family whose eyes he no longer had the courage to meet. And if that humiliation wasn't enough, the punishment cut deeper still. Exile. The long summer stretched before him, stripped of freedom, stripped of friends, stripped of the laughter and reckless joy he had imagined would fill these months. Instead, he would spend his days confined, left only to imagine what everyone else was doing beneath the golden sun of the season. The games, the parties, the memories being made without him. The Ides of summer had turned against him, taunting him with what might have been. He counted the days not with anticipation, but with desperation, measuring time not in joy, but in the endless string of chores that filled each morning and stretched long into the evening. Tasks he had never touched before now seemed to define his existence. As soon as he completed one, another was waiting. Painting the weathered boards of the house until his arms ached, digging out gardens beneath the blistering sun, stripping old furniture down to bare wood, clearing years of clutter from the garage, until the dust choked him, and still the list went on. It was as if his punishment had been designed not merely to confine him, but to grind him down, stripping away the pride, the ego, the freedom he had once carried so easily. With every brushstroke, every shovel of earth, every weary scrape of sandpaper, Marcus felt less like the celebrated athlete of Easton High, and more like a prisoner in his own home, paying penance one chore at a time. He longed for the moment he could finally step onto the campus of a new school, a new world, a new life, a place where no one knew his name, no one whispered about his failures, no one remembered the shame. At least that was what he told himself, because hope of escape was easier than facing the truth that still lingered in the shadows of his room. And still his thoughts betrayed him. Instead of grasping the lesson, instead of reckoning with the pain he had caused, Marcus's mind wandered to his reputation. Would this incident follow him to college? Would whispers of the prom and of Jada's rejection stain the fresh start he imagined? Or would new faces, new teammates, and new admirers allow him to bury the past beneath the noise of a new crowd? He thought of escape, of running from this chapter, of starting again where no one knew his name. But escape was not the same as redemption. And though he could not yet admit it, the truth remained. Marcus still hadn't learned to place another's feelings above his own. As the tiring evening came to a close, as the night stretched on and the silence in his room seemed to grow even heavier, one thing became crystal clear. There was still so much for him to learn. A few miles away, Jada was adjusting to her new normal. What she hadn't expected was the way the school, and even the community, seemed to rally behind her. Whispers turned into quiet nods of respect, glances of admiration, and even praise that she had never sought. She had been thrust into the center of a storm, yet somehow she emerged steady, her calm presence speaking louder than any defense she could have mounted. The truth was, she had been hurt. The implication that she had succumbed to Marcus's advances was weighty. She had felt the sting of his words, the weight of rumors, the coldness of lies meant to fracture her spirit. But instead of letting them take root, she released them. She chose forgiveness, not for him, but for herself. Because she believed deeply, unshakably, that vindication was not hers to chase. It would come in its own perfect timing. Jada remembered her grandmother's voice echoing from Scripture. No weapon formed against you shall prosper, and every tongue that rises against you in judgment shall be condemned. She held those words close, a shield against the gossip, against the doubts, against the shadows that tried to steal her peace. And so, even as the storm raged in whispers around her, Jada carried herself with quiet certainty. She believed the lies would wither, the truth would stand, and this too, like every storm, would pass. Marcus, once the towering figure in her story, had already begun to fade into a fleeting afterthought. And with each passing day, Jada stepped more fully into her strength, her dignity, and the unshakable calm that had become her new crown.
He saw Jada once in the hallway, a week after prom. She was laughing with friends, wearing her school hoodie, braids now in a simple bun, carrying a sketchbook. She didn't glance his way. He wanted to say something. Maybe apologize. Maybe explain. But for the first time in a long time, Marcus felt small. Not because she made him feel that way, but because she didn't need to. And that hurt worse than any viral comment. Moral of the story: maturity isn't about how old you are or how many people admire you. Atia, it's how you act when no one's clapping. True strength is quiet. Real confidence doesn't need to control the narrative. Jada knew her worth, and Marcus, he's learning.